I hope you're well. For those who don't know me, it's Ben from My Cycling Coach, where we've now helped over 500 cyclists achieve 3 watts per kilo and beyond with their power, fitness, weight, so that they've been able to really enjoy riding their bike at a whole new level, but also the long-term health benefits that are associated with doing those things as well. This week's topic then, this week's video, what I really wanted to dive into is you may have now actually started to transition some of your riding out onto the road. Certainly if you have been somebody who's been doing a lot of riding indoors on your trainer during the winter, you may have even been performing some structured training through that indoor riding that you've been doing, and how you can now take that training from that more controlled environment, certainly if you've been performing some interval training, and actually transition that out onto the road. This is a mistake that we can see a lot of this time of year as riders who have had a good winter of training, been performing some structured intervals, trying to improve their FTP, threshold, VO2 max to prepare for the spring and summer, is that when they actually start to go out onto the road, that gets left behind and that structure is then removed or lost within their training. So yes, you will start to increase your training volume, probably in the spring and summer, the amount of riding you're doing, the weekly mileage that you're performing, and through that you will no doubt see an improvement in your endurance. However, that functional threshold power, that threshold VO2 max top end quality that you've built over the winter is then sometimes lost through actually not continuing to perform some of those sessions out on the road. And this can be quite difficult. Yeah, out on the road, it's obviously nowhere near as controlled as indoors on the trainer. You don't have the apps there, maybe like Swift, Ruby, all the different ones on a trainer road to help you actually follow a session and just look at that screen. And then obviously erg mode can also really help if you have a turbo trainer that allows you to turn on erg mode and really control you through the session. So today, really just wanted to run through, and by the way, if you're watching this and somebody who hasn't really done much riding through the winter and you haven't been doing any structured training, this is also really going to help you as well. You may just generally at this time of year, that's actually when you start to just ride your bike more because of time, days are getting longer, weather's improving, then this is also really going to help you just build some structure in and maybe start doing some structure training on the road so that you can hit the start of the summer in great shape. So really, step one, when you're taking that structured training from indoors out onto the road, is to look at the sessions that you're performing. So if you've been following me for a while, we're just going to break down 2 sessions today. You know, I'm a big fan of really keeping up some good quality threshold intervals and VO2 max intervals to really ensure that you're developing FTP. With those threshold sessions, you're improving your body's lactate tolerance, which is going to be really good for your hill climbing, sustained efforts, generally improving all of your training zones, but also VO2 max, improving your body's ability to utilize oxygen, really good for that top end stuff, but just generally all of your training zones, improving your aerobic capacity, as I say, your body's ability to utilize oxygen, and also lots of research coming out there now in terms of VO2 max, just from a longevity standpoint, with your health, the higher that you can keep your VO2 max as we go through life, it has been associated with some great longevity benefits there as well. So let's just carve out some intervals. We did this if you've been following me for a while now, in a few videos prior in terms of the sessions, but when we're just looking at the 2 key sessions that we're going to focus on taking from the indoor trainer out onto the road today, the first one is going to be the threshold session. So we're just going to put this as THR is our threshold session. And generally, threshold intervals, when we're performing them, probably want to be, if you're a bit tight on time, you probably won't do any longer than this. So they're going to be anything between 8 to maximum 20 minutes in length. Okay, so when we're doing our threshold intervals, 8 to 20 minutes in length. And in terms of intensity, probably going to be anything between 90 to 105% of your FTP. Okay, now you'll see why this is important in a moment, because we're going to start matching this to segments out on the road. Okay, but just so we know, threshold intervals themselves, these are the sort of durations and the intensities that we want to be targeting. The second session, as we've already said then, is VO2 max, key energy system, or what we're looking to really develop there. And the interval durations for VO2 max can be anything from 3 to 8 minutes in length. We will start to get a bit of a crossover here into threshold when we get towards the 8 minutes, but generally, 3 to 8 minutes in length for your VO2 max intervals. And the intensity of these will be starting, as we said there, 105 to 120% of your FTP. Okay, so the great thing is once we actually have, your training session, so just as an example, you might be doing an interval session that has 4 times 10-minute blocks of your 4 times 10 minutes at, let's just say, 100% of your FTP. okay? Or you might be doing a VO2 max session, might have 4 times 4 minutes at 112, 115% of your FTP. Yeah, or you might be doing 5 times 5 minutes. You know, no matter the session that you're doing, the great thing is with this structure, you can see the length of the intervals. And then what we want to do, this is where we'll start to make that transition, is actually go onto Strava. If you're watching this video, I imagine that you've got a Strava account, right? You may already be familiar with some of the segments in your local area. And these don't always have to be hill climbs, by the way. This is something that's, yeah, great. If you have a hill that is between 3 to 5 minutes in length that you can go and use to perform your VO2 max intervals on, great. You obviously want to be specific. Many people, we all want to improve our hill climbing as much as we can. So if you have a hill that is 3 to 5 minutes in length, you can do some hill repeats up that hill and actually then use that to do your VO2 max training sessions on. So it's really just a matter of doing a little bit of homework prior to your session. If you're following a training program and you can see this Saturday, I have 4 times 4 minutes at VO2 max, think, okay, yeah, so I know that there's that hill, or it might be a flatter section of road. If you can't access a hill, you just know you can get out into the countryside a little bit where there's not any traffic lights or too much traffic, so it's a little bit quiet, and you just have a nice flat or slightly rolling, undulating segment that you know is quite a familiar one to you that you can get to. Then you may also just use that. Certainly for the flatter ones, you know, if you're maybe UK based, you may not be able to access, obviously, a hill that is 20 minutes in duration, or you may not be able to access a flat road that you know is consistent enough or is quiet enough where you can go and do 20-minute efforts on. You might be able to, in which case you might be able to go and do, as your part of your threshold session, a classic one is like 2 times 15 minutes or 2 times 16 minutes or 2 times 20 minutes, for example. And great for time trialists, certainly if you're a time trialist, if you know you have a segment of road like that, or that you can access on Strava or where that piece of road is, then that is a great way that you can actually take your threshold session from indoors on the trainer and start using that segment to actually perform your session. So once we have these, it's really then looking at, okay, looking at your local area, and this can be really good fun as part of your endurance rides, going out this time of year as you start to venture out a little bit more now, doing a bit of a recce, finding some segments and thinking, okay, yeah, that could be a great one for threshold, that could be a great one for VO2 max. But generally, you know, if you can find a segment, shall we say, that is around, let's just say 10 minutes in length, yeah? Okay? If you can find a segment that is 10 minutes in length, then you can use this really for both, yeah? You can use it for VO2 max and threshold, right? Because, you know, you can carve out, as I say, some really good threshold intervals, 4 times 10 minutes, 5 times 10 minutes, 3 times 10 minutes, depending on your level and where you are with your training, yeah? Your specific sort of training history and how much you have done over the winter. But if you know that you've got a 10-minute segment that you can ride out to, it might take you 10 minutes to get there, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, that's your warm-up, to ride out to that segment, yeah? You can then go and do your intervals. If it's a hill, and generally it takes you 4 minutes to ride up that hill, it may only take you 2 minutes to get back down. This is on your hill repeats. And if you then, you know, have let's say you're doing a 4-minute VO2 max interval, you may have between 5 to 10 minutes recovery, again, depending on where you are within your training and how much training you have done. But you can ride back down the hill. If it takes you 4 minutes to get up there, it might take you 2 minutes to get back down. At the bottom of the hill, you might then just ride along the flat section a little bit, turn around at a certain point, come back to the bottom of the hill, and then do your next 4-minute effort. And this will take a little bit of getting used to. And this is something that I really want to emphasize here. It's not going to be perfect first time round. But really, don't worry about that, okay? Because with practice, it will get better. I think some people are quite hesitant to actually go and try this because they feel that maybe the quality of the session isn't going to be as good as it would be maybe on a trainer, and you might not be getting some, you know, you might be losing out on some training adaptations or training benefits from that. Okay, yeah, when you do it the first time, you may find that, okay, the first interval may only be, you know, 3.5 minutes, or you may overshoot it and do, you know, 5 minutes, or the recovery period, trying to time it with riding down the hill and actually coming back round to hit the bottom, the recovery period might be a little bit longer. But the more you practice that, and if you find your 10-minute segment, after doing 3, 4, 5, 6 sessions on it, you'll really get dulled in it. Be like, right, yeah, from that lamppost or that sign, that's my point. I know if I turn around here, ride back in zone 1, zone 2 to the bottom of the hill, that's my 7-minute recovery period done. And I've actually then you start to really hold yourself even more accountable to those different segments through the workout, and that will really help you there. And the great thing about this is it's actually just allowing you to become more versatile. Yeah, on the trainer, erg mode, okay, it's not doing all the work for you. Obviously, you've still got to turn the pedals, but the erg mode and the, you know, Swift, if you like, if you're putting your workouts there, will do a lot of the thinking for you. The great thing about this is if you're actually going and doing your intervals on a hill, that becomes even more specific to what you're trying to work on. So you may have to really think about your cadence a little bit more. You might have to play around with your gearing a little bit more. Find that right cadence that works best for you on that hill. And just by actually going and doing this, it will make you a more versatile rider. Certainly if you're mixing it up and maybe doing some of your VO2s on a hill, just because you generally, the hills that you have access to are shorter. So you may find, okay, yeah, I can do 3, 4, 5 minute intervals because I have a hill that allows me to do that. I don't actually have a hill that allows me to do threshold work, so I'm going to go and do my threshold work on the flat. Completely different cadence that you've got to play around with for then going and doing a VO2 on a hill, and just that in itself will make you a more versatile rider when you're tackling the terrain through the spring and summer. Just on this then, guys, as well, there's ways that you can obviously input your structured training session that you may, if you are following a training plan, onto your bike computer when you're going and doing the training session, yeah? So you will see it on your dashboard, but sometimes this can be quite hard, or on the computer itself. This can be quite hard because you may not know how long it's going to take you to obviously get to the interval, the segment that you've identified on Strava that is going to work for that particular session. So I personally have found over the years, the easiest way to do this is just to lap time the session on your bike computer. Set up your lap timer. That way you know that, if you're following a fairly easy, simple session like 4 times 4 minutes at VO2 max, then it's quite easy. And I don't know, you might have like 6 to 8 minutes of recovery between that. Or, there's other sessions that you can do going into 30-30s, but we won't go into too many different types of sessions. But let's just keep it simple, 4 times 4 minutes. That's a fairly easy session to just remember in your head, and lap time. So you'll ride out, let's say you've done half an hour to get to your segment. As soon as you get to the bottom of the hill to start your first interval, you hit the lap timer, you ride up 4 minutes. When you see that 4 minutes is complete on the lap time, you hit it again, you turn around, you come down, the lap timer's running, you do your 7-minute recovery period, time it so you're at the back of the hill, and you just keep lap time in the session that way. And that just allows you to have a little bit more adaptable in terms of by the time you actually get out to, the climb or the segment that you're using, rather than if you're having your structured workout imported onto your bike computer and then finding that, okay, yeah, the warm-up is actually only 10-20 minutes and you're not going to be able to arrive at the segment you want to in time of that. And then obviously when you come back, you finish your set of intervals, you can hit the lap timer and your ride back home from the segment that you've been using will be your cool down there. So yeah, I hope that helps, guys, just in terms of threshold, VO2 max, durations. Once you now have your training session and you've put something together, get yourself onto Strava, do a little bit of homework there, find a segment that you can use, and just maybe if you're not following a structured workout, put a little bit of a session together and go and have a play around with it. It can be really quite a fun thing to do. As I say, certainly if you're fed up of the trainer now, you've been on the trainer for 4 to 5 months, and you really want to actually, transition the bulk of your riding now out onto the road. But really, as I say, what we can see, that the big mistake that a lot of riders make, they'll then just lose that really good structure that they've had and lose that maybe top end power, maybe see an improvement in endurance, or if you're somebody who's just getting into it, then training this way, you're going to see some amazing progress and fitness and allow you to have a fantastic spring summer on the bike. Guys, if you're new to the channel and you found this useful, please hit that subscribe button below. We'd love to have you on the channel. I hope you found this useful. If you have, please also drop a thumbs up on the video. But keep up the great work, fuel smart, ride strong, and speak to you soon.